Okay, good afternoon. Welcome everybody. My name is Benjamin de Beau, and I'm really delighted to be able to present this session together with my colleagues Carmen, Logue, and Tom Dyar. We're the part of the product management team for data platforms that looks after all things data and analytics. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about here, everything analytics, or at least, so we'll skip the data part for the next session, but analytics and AI is the topic of today's session. As you may have already seen from the agenda and from the contents of the keynotes, there's quite a lot happening. So there's quite a lot of emphasis. So we'll have a lot to talk about in these 45 minutes. So what we'll do is we'll try to first, just as kind of to set the level, briefly talk through our strategy, so our strategic themes for AI analytics. And then we'll talk through a couple of use cases. We'll present sort of a data team, and then try to talk through 3 different use cases. We have nicely divided them up between the 3 of us that are based on a real story, based on a real customer. That kind of are exemplary use cases in the analytics world. So for each of those use cases, we'll talk through what the problem is, what the people are that are involved in addressing those problems, how you can address them today, or how parts of that use case are addressed by the technology that we have with InterSystems IRIS today. And for each of these use cases, we'll also comment on a roadmap item, so something that's a little farther out, but that we're happy to announce or we're happy to ask your feedback about. Then we'll sort of wrap up by walking through the roadmap just once more. And then we'll hopefully have some time for questions. You can submit questions through the app, I believe. It's going to be exciting to see whether that works. And otherwise, there's still the classic way of kind of raising your hand and shouting. OK, on to shouting. So our strategy. So what are we after? So I'll talk through our strategy for analytics, sort of more mundane analytics, and then a little bit about AI. And if you're watching some of the other sessions, you'll recognize a couple of the themes and diagrams that we're using because we just like to use them. So this is about our open analytics strategy. So with InterSystems IRIS Data Platform, we want to offer a platform that helps people deliver the analytics that they want, using the tools that they want, using the tools that they are most productive with. So that comes through a couple of embedded technologies like the BI and text analytics capabilities that you know that have been embedded in our platform for a long while, but also opening up to a couple of third-party solutions and industry standards. And some of these, if you watched Scott's presentation this morning, Scott's keynote this morning, he actually had a much prettier slide, but he didn't want to share it, which had all the logos of the things that we're integrating with. And maybe one thing stood out to me during this morning's keynotes. It's the first year that I have seen so many or any logos of competitors, direct competitors, even in Terry's presentation. There was SQL Server there was Teradata, there was Hortonworks on the screen. We're really serious about this openness. We're really serious about providing an open platform that allows you to interoperate with other third-party technologies. So I hope that message is something that's coming across. So that's for analytics. Then for AI, we've got 2 main themes. We've got accelerating AI and incorporating AI. So on the acceleration front, we want to accelerate AI for data scientists, for data engineers. And that stretches all the way from data ops. Some people, including Jeff Fried, like to refer to this as data wrangling, which is where the picture comes from. But I think it's nicer to have data ops on your resume than data wrangling. So that's the data ops part. So that's provisioning data for the actual data science to happen. Then the actual data science work, so iterative machine learning techniques, algorithms, et cetera. And then for deploying those models, that's sort of the third stage where we want to help people accelerate their business. So really making the data team more productive is what we're after in this part of our AI strategy. Then for the incorporation of AI, that is about incorporating it in our platform, in our applications, and in your solutions. In our platform means making sure that we use internally, under the hood, out of sight, that we're using AI to make sure that our platform runs swift, that it runs nice. Gartner likes to call that augmented data management. We just call it InterSystems IRIS Data Platform. Applications. In our applications, we're also embedding AI pieces. And during the Wednesday keynote, when there will be a bunch of demos, you'll also see one example of how we're applying machine learning in patient index, in HealthShare. And then at the solution level, we're trying to make it easy for you to incorporate AI services in your applications. So that was sort of a quick intro into the overall themes of our AI analytics strategy. Without further ado, I'd like to pass the floor to Carmen for introducing the use cases and data team.
Great. Thank you, Benjamin. It's a real pleasure to be with you. This is my first summit. Joined the InterSystems team just last spring. So excited to be here and share this with you. So one of the most important things I think that product managers do, along with our user experience colleagues, is try to figure out features that meet the needs of our customers and matching those up. So one of the things that we've done is developed a set of personas that allow us to kind of ground ourselves in the end users that ultimately use our features and solutions, and to think about them as we're developing software and solutions. So we're going to introduce you to some of these personas over the course of these next 3 use cases. But just really broadly, let's talk about down on the bottom right there. Those are the people that are working on bringing the data in. They're working on data modeling, that sort of thing. That's our production team, if you can think about them that way. In the lower left-hand corner over there, that's kind of the laboratory symbol there. Those are our data scientists, people who are applying machine learning models, that sort of thing. And then across the top, we have our executive team and our analysts. So these are kind of end users of all of this data production that we've done, who use the information to make business decisions and that kind of thing. So these are the broad groups of end users that we think about as we're going through this. And as I said, you'll meet all of these team members throughout the course of these next few use cases. So I'm going to talk about the first use case. As we do this, we're trying to use these use cases to kind of ground you in the things that we've done over the last year or so, plus things that we're looking toward. And the great thing about a summit like this is that we can talk to you, we can get information. And one of the things we'd really like to do is get feedback about what we're thinking about in particular. So I have the easy job of talking about a use case that you've all kind of heard already this morning. So Mediterranean Shipping Company is one of the customers that we loosely base this on. As Benjamin said, none of these are exact use cases. They're built on a number of different customers. But I think it's easy for us to think about the Mediterranean shipping information that we heard this morning. As he talked about it and put a lot of numbers up there, there's all kinds of stuff going on. The thing that I find fascinating about this kind of use case is that there are so many things that you can't control. The weather, strikes, all of that stuff, in addition to seeing kind of all that data flowing through the system. It's a fascinating use case, I think. And the 2 kind of problems that we're going to talk about in this use case, one of them is about real-time information. So making shipment information available to end customers so that they can get information about where their shipment is, when it's going to arrive, if it's going to be late, when it's going to, when it will eventually arrive. And then the other use case is really looking at trending and more of a historical use case where we're looking at, what routes are effective for us. Should we change our partnership strategy because we're finding that this route is more effective than the other? So those are the broad use cases. And the people that are involved in this, the first one I'll introduce you to is Munir. And Munir's job is primarily to bring the data in from the various third parties, from the various ports. All that information needs to come in. So that's what he's worried about. He's got a set of tools that he used to do that. All of our personas have a little motto that we like to throw in there too. The second person is Anna, our analyst. And her job is to take all that information that's coming in and make it into something that can be digested and presented to the executive team so that they can figure out what to do, quarterly reporting, all that kind of stuff. And then the third one is Bob, who's our manager. Now, Bob normally only gets involved in things if he's closing a deal or he's working with a customer. For today's problem, he's going to be meeting with a customer later on that he needs to get some information about so that he can present to this customer all the ways that his company has kind of improved the route selection and understanding kind of when there's duplicate information or missing information. They're trying to work on proactively identifying when somebody forgets to mark a shipment as passed through their port. So he's looking for that specific information. So this is how this team works together. What's going to happen in this use case, Bob is going to go to Anna. He's going to say, I need to get information. I'm meeting this customer later this afternoon. I need to get information about this customer and all the, over the last 3 months, what have we improved in terms of their, of the performance of, how we're getting things through the system for them. Anna's going to mostly be able to do that on her own, but she's probably going to have to talk to Munir about how the data model is set up. And so three of them are going to ultimately work together to do that. Now, the problem for Munir is that this is one case, but I mean, just as they talked about in this morning's keynote, Munir's could possibly get 25 people coming to him in one day to generate this report. And they talked this morning about, their IT organization was generating all these reports. What you really want to do is empower the Annas of the world and allow her to get the information that she needs on her own. So there's two ways that we are working on that or doing that. One of them is our own built-in business intelligence tool, which you guys probably know as DeepSea. And we are very actively looking at that with our user experience team right now to try and really focus our efforts around what we want to deliver as DeepSea. So if you're interested in that, you can see we're doing a session that's dedicated to that on Wednesday. So you can join us for that. And so that's one key area, is having some built-in business intelligence capabilities, and that's an area that we're actively looking at now. The other area that we've worked on over the last year or so is in bringing better integration to existing tools. So if Anna already uses Power BI, we want to make it easier for her to continue to do that. So in April of this year, Microsoft's April release had the ability to connect directly to InterSystems IRIS. So you open it up, you select InterSystems IRIS from the pull down, and now you have access to both the SQL tables, but probably more importantly, the measures and dimensions of an InterSystems IRIS cube. So it brings that power to Microsoft users who are, they're comfortable in that environment. So really, that's another thing we want to do. We're also working to make that available with Tableau as well. So once they have the ability to offer that up, offer different ways of connecting, different connections, we can do that too. So if that's something that you're interested in, please talk to me. We are looking for alpha and beta customers to trial that as well. So those are two key areas that we're working on. Another area, you can imagine with this shipping company, one of the problems that they probably have is that they're getting information from lots of different ports, lots of different third parties, all about the same shipments, the same customers, and there's lots of opportunity for duplication, for slight spelling changes that might cause duplication. So this is an area that we're looking on in delivering additional features. We think that InterSystems IRIS is uniquely positioned to deliver what I would call master data management type features. So deduplication, some of that kind of stuff. We also have experience in some other parts of our platform that we can learn from as well. So this is an active area of research, I'd say. If this is something that you're interested in or have ideas for us, I'll be at one of the lunch tables tomorrow. There'll be a sign up that says Master Data Management. Please come talk to me about that if that's something that you're interested in as well. So those are a few different things that we're looking at. We're going to now go to our second use case, so I will turn it back to Benjamin.
Thank you, Carmen. So the second use case of today, is going to be about retail companies. In case you are schizophrenic and your other half is downstairs in the executive track, you'll see the customer that actually we're modeling this use case on. So Spar, or rather Aspiac Services, is a retail company that offers franchising services across Europe and even outside Europe, I believe. And they have a couple of centralized services that they offer, including IT services, and that IT service, that IT function, also includes a data science team. And so with that customer, we've been working very intensely over the past 6 months on a most interesting data science project. So the project that we worked with them on was was about shop performance management. So the Spar chain, which has many different shops, of course, across Europe, across Central Europe, and those shops are in very different places. So, and they also have very different sizes. They can be really small grocery stores up to kind of medium-sized supermarkets. So if you want to judge which of those supermarkets is doing well, so which are the top performers, that's a little hard. You can't just compare them because it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. Also, the types of goods that they're selling are also very dependent on where they're at. So if this is in an urban area in the middle of the city center, maybe the gardening department is not as huge as it is in a suburban part of the region. So what they did in this project was use clustering algorithms to try and find clusters of combinations of shops that were similar, combined with product sets. And for those combinations, they made specific performance metrics, and so that they could have really apples-to-apples comparisons. So they sort of, with the clustering, they tried to identify the apples, the pears, the oranges, and then they could compare the apples to the apples, the pears to the pears, etc. So that's one project that they did. Of course, as you can understand, this is a franchise environment, so there's a lot of different tools, a lot of different people involved. So that heterogeneity was also a key challenge to the whole project. And of course, you want to do that repeatedly because what you sold in terms of Christmas tree decorations in December is different from what you'll sell in that category in, say, April. Another typical retail challenge is promotions, making recommendations to people about what they should buy next. So if I go to my local supermarket back in Belgium, when I present my loyalty card at the end, when I get a ticket at a checkout, it's not just what I bought, but it also has like 5 different promotions of what I should definitely buy within a week or so, because otherwise the promotion is invalid. So, and those recommendations are based sort of in real time on who I am, what I just bought, etc. So that's also a typical data science task. So these are things that are of a different nature from the classic BI style solutions that you would do through cubes with slicing and dicing, or at least there's a component to it that needs to happen up front. So and that's what our friend Doug takes care of. Doug is a data scientist who uses data science tools like Python, R, and all the wonderful libraries in those. And he looks for these patterns. It takes, you obviously got to have some experience with those tools, but it's also a different mindset. It's not like you're building your data model and then doing analysis on it or presenting a nice report, but it's really a very iterative approach. You try an algorithm here, that doesn't work, maybe try a different algorithm there, and then tune the parameters a little bit. So that's what Doug does. So he builds these recommendation algorithms, the clustering things. But Doug can't work in isolation. He needs data to work with. Eric is the person who gives him that data, who delivers that data. He's in the data ops side, if you will. So getting data from A to B, typically working through all sorts of very hardcore tools. Always comes with his sleeves rolled up, and he just gets the data where it needs to be and makes sure that Doug can be as productive as he should be. And then eventually, remember the recommendations on your ticket. That comes from a process that's sitting somewhere in your production environment. So deploying those models into a production environment, making them part of a business process is yet another challenge, is yet another specialty because it touches yet different technologies. So that's what Tom does. So how do they work together? Well, all 3 of them work nicely together. So Eric is clearly in our operational area. Doug is clearly more on the experimental labs section, and then Tom is also working on the operational side, working closely with what he gets from Doug and how we can kind of wire that up with the source data that Eric has the passwords for. So what do we have on offer today to help people like Doug, Eric, and Tom? We have a wonderful project that's available through the Open Exchange that's called the ML Toolkit. It includes a Python gateway, which might be another term that you've heard or come across on our developer community and Open Exchange. This is a really powerful way how, from your InterSystems IRIS applications, you can reach out to all of these nice libraries in Python and R. So It does not only include the raw mechanics that allow you to both at a code and at the business process level leverage those technologies, but also it has a couple of, sorry, I got ahead of myself a little bit, but it also includes a couple of fully documented showcases. And what we've done at ASPIAC, as well as 2 of the customers that will be co-presenting with us in these 2 sessions, is we start from those showcases, we try to kind of map them to the data that's available, and you can get going in a very short time span, and then gradually kind of refine it to better suit your business environment. So that's what this, that's what the ML Toolkit is for. So, and the problem that it solves is actually kind of a lack in these low-level mathematical modeling tools, a lack of sort of process capabilities. Yes, you have a single process that you can go through. You can use Python notebooks, Jupyter notebooks that are efficient ways of chaining paragraphs, but there's not really process control. There's not really a link to applications. So that's really the sort of thing that the machine learning toolkit solves. So that's something that's available today for download. As you can see, we're talking a lot about it this week. And then what's next is a concept that kind of tries and solves a problem for Doug and Eric. So building a model once is, even with the help of the machine learning toolkit, is something that kind of, yeah, you can do that. You build it once, you build it in a bottom-up fashion, you get started, experiment a little bit, but then you need to do it again the week after, and you need to do it again on a weekly basis after that. And then that sort of informal sequence of steps and tasks executed by different people, most notably Doug and Eric in this case, that becomes kind of a pretty manual process, and it's also error-prone. So some more orchestration to drive those heterogeneous tools is certainly appropriate. And that's what our analytic workflow concept is about. So I'll be presenting a session about that tomorrow at 4:30, where we'll go into much more detail, and we'll have a wonderful demo of the current prototype. So this is a nice screenshot of it. So this is when when Eric comes in the morning, and if somebody can convince him to use his mouse to go to this nice user interface, where you can get a quick overview of all of the workflows that have been running, which ones through errors, etc. So again, a demo about that tomorrow. And with that, I'll happily hand over to Tom for the
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm also new to InterSystems. I started in February. I'm very happy to be here. So the use case that I'm going to talk about is a pain checklist automation project. And this is happening in a large healthcare system. It's actually Cedars-Sinai. And this is based on a pilot that we've done with them and exploring with them. And so they are very focused as an organization on biomedical research and clinical trials and medical education. So as part of that, they wanted to increase the efficiency of their workflow that was all manual at this time to collect information about patients' pain at the time. And they wanted to also leverage data from their EHR system that was already there. They have a lot of data collected. And being able to use that in the context of some new applications is something they wanted to try out. And if you're interested in this in general, using Alexa, which is how they use it, some voice data, voice applications, we have a session specifically about that with healthcare and data in Alexa on Tuesday, tomorrow at 4:30. So here's a look at the application, and the workflow generally starts from the left. So the all manual process that they started with and wanted to automate was that the nurses would go into each room at a certain time of the day and ask the patients their pain level. And they would record that and then determine whether or not it was out of the realm of what's expected, given the surgery they had, how long it was since that surgery. And they would determine what patients needed a little more care and some follow-up, just doing that manually. But now with this application, they're going to put an Alexa device next to each patient. And they can, anytime, they'll be prompted at certain times to enter their information about their pain. But they could also just hit the button anytime and start the conversation if they felt some pain. So they could get a lot of kind of customer engagement types of things in the long run, being able to really be there for their patients at any moment's notice. And provide that in a very personalized way. So after the Alexa kind of prompts for the name and the date of birth, that pulls up data from their EHR system. Then they're going to pass that to a machine learning model that's detecting whether or not this is a patient's pain level that's unexpected, and if so, send an alert. They also want to take all of those alerts that they're sending out or that they fail to send out, make sure that they catalog that, get some information from the nurses whether or not that was the right thing or the wrong thing to do, and improve their model. So how is this application going to be developed, and who's going to do it? So we have a new persona here that we haven't seen. Her name is Sophia, and she's a data geek. Okay. She definitely knows SQL very well, regular expressions, and she's involved in really understanding the nature of the data, the structure of it, the patterns in the data, a bit like the data scientist, but much more into how that data is being stored. And then, of course, there's Tom. He's an integration engineer, and he's involved in making sure that all of that information gets routed correctly back into that EHR, back into the application from the EHR. And in a large healthcare system, you need a lot of these. So when Cedars-Sinai first started using InterSystems many years ago, they had 160 different systems to integrate into our interoperability system. And then, of course, there's Doug. He's going to really build this model. He's going to use a Jupyter notebook in this case. And one of the problems is that there's only one Doug, right? And there's many, many applications. So it would be nice if Sophia could use her wonderful data wrangling skills and her data knowledge of the data to be able to help build this model. And we're actually going to provide some tooling for her. And you might have seen in the keynote from Scott that there is a SQL interface to machine learning that we're working on. So as part of our strategy of being open and having kind of a native plus open, looking at how that model is developed, over on the right-hand side, you have whatever you want to use. Okay? It could be Spark. You could have things in R. You could be using TensorFlow to develop this model. And we want to make it easy to get that data for training out of IRIS so that you can use it in whatever environment you want. Then you're going to export that model. If you have a model that you can represent as a predictive markup model or predictive model markup language file, you can load that into IRIS, and it could be running in kind of a real-time context as those events are flowing through the system. So one of the kind of roadmap items that we're looking at more in the future is we definitely have a solid interoperability platform now. But there's many tools out there, like getting Alexa integrated with this or some other machine learning services that could be integrated more tightly. We could develop built-in connectors to get to those services, and we're definitely looking for feedback on these kind of features. And we also have experience labs and some sessions on rapid application development in this realm. And so for Sophia, as we talked about, she's definitely going to be able to work with this machine learning model using QuickML. So there's only one Doug, and QuickML is going to be this kind of turnkey automatic machine learning functionality within IRIS. And we're prototyping this now. We're going to release it early next year. So to look at a little bit about how you would actually create a machine learning model, it's dead simple. So you set up your model that you're going to learn with one statement where you're going to say what data that you're going to be predicting, what the column, whether or not this is an anomalous pain alert, and you're going to tell it what data, your schema. Once you do that, you can train it with another simple statement. And then you can have where clauses that determine exactly what data you want to train on. And that way you can retrain with different subsets of data and make sure that you're getting the right model. And then when it's time to actually make predictions, you have one statement to get those predictions and use them in your application. Okay, so I'm going to hand it back to Benjamin.
Thank you, Tom. So we've talked through our high-level strategy for analytics and AI. We've talked through 3 different use cases that are broad-ranging and that kind of touch on different pieces of our platform today and of our roadmap, which we'll now just sort of summarize once more. So we've tried to organize this, and you'll see this in several other presentations across the conference. We try to organize our roadmap in features that are available today so that you can take advantage of with the kit that you can download today. Things that we have in the pipeline that are in progress and are bound to be hitting the market in the next couple of months or 9 months or so. And then what's further out, and these are probably the things that we really want to hear your feedback about, because this is the time where we can really shape those and make sure that they address the problems that you are facing and can help your business more productive. So, and because analytics and AI is obviously a very broad field, I've tried to group the different features in sort of 2 main swim lanes. One where we're targeting the builders, the people that really build stuff for others to work with, and the consumers who are more on the receiving end of analytics. So a lot of text here. Things that we have today, of course, a terrifically scalable database engine that can serve up data to any platform at very high speed. We've got that embedded PML runtime that was mentioned, machine learning toolkit, which we mentioned. The embedded BI and natural language processing technologies are also available in our product. But then this year, we're adding quite a few things. So analytic workflows is in the works. More about that tomorrow. The AI interoperability, many sessions about that as well. And then here, QuickML is something that you'll also see a very nice demo about Wednesday morning during the keynote session. Themes that we're very interested in hearing your thoughts about are model ops. So how many different models do you have running concurrently? Do you want to do any A/B testing between those models? What happens with over a model's lifetime? Do you want to observe the maybe models queue, predictions queue? So those are themes that we're exploring and that we're happy to take your ideas about. Augmented data management, which I mentioned a little earlier on, embedding AI inside of our platform. And then master data management, which Carmen is hosting a lunch table session about tomorrow. And then finally also the data anonymization, which she also mentioned. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what we're working on and what we're very curious to hear your thoughts about. And with that, all right, time for Carmen to wrap up.
Thanks, Benjamin. Yeah, so I think the primary thing I want to say is come to the session on Wednesday. Our user experience team is going to be running that. I think they're in the room today. Yeah, so hopefully we can all come out of there agreeing, as we see in the cartoon. We're going to be, we did run a survey, actually. You may have, actually, let me ask, who received the survey about business intelligence when they registered? We had a few. Okay, good. I think it didn't go to the InterSystems people, but it should have gone to everybody else. So we ran a survey there about how you're using business intelligence now. So we're going to reveal the results of that survey. We're going to talk through some use cases in that session. And then we'll tell you how we're planning to use that feedback kind of going forward. And that's, as you've seen, I think all of us throughout this session anyways have said, you know, one of the things that we like to do with the roadmap session is hear back from you. Are we on the right track? Are we doing the right things? Do we have the kind of the personas, the people that we think about, either you or your customers, or do we have the right kind of people in mind for that? And what else could we do for them? So please feel free to talk to all of us. I'll ask you to kind of get your questions ready, because I think we have time for a couple of questions if there are any immediately after the session, and we have a microphone back there as well so we can get you on the recording. So feel free to ask us questions about any of this content or anything else that's coming up. Oh, and actually, the final thing, there's a lot going on with analytics and AI at this year's summit, so hopefully you see our enthusiasm just based on the number of sessions that we have there. You probably can't get to all of them, but all of them will eventually be posted, so you can go and listen to them after the summit if you don't get to them this week. So hopefully take advantage of a lot of them, go back and listen to them later, and hopefully we'll all learn a lot together. So with that, can I, are there any questions that anybody is brave enough to ask with a microphone? Just raise your hand and we'll bring the microphone to you. No, we've answered all of them. Are we on the right track? Yeah? Okay, good. So please, like I said, please catch any of us in the hallway. Give us feedback about other things that we might not have thought about. Oh, we do have a question in the back. Great.
So how do you plan to use the, like the Alexa process or any other use cases that you've come up with to use that in the healthcare environment or other environments?
So this is really part of that AI interoperability theme that we're working on. So providing connectors that allow you to easily embed these online services, because from our point of view, Alexa is an online service that will, at a certain moment, kind of invoke us with some voice-recognized text that comes from a patient in this case. So what we're committing to is to provide connectors that take care of all of the complicated and somewhat boring plumbing to get to those services. I don't know if you, for example, have already tried to work with AWS, but the way how you have to hash and then sign and then hash again your messages to send to AWS and back is rather complicated. We want to take that complexity away from you and make it really sort of a drag and drop experience when you're defining your business process, that you can really just drag and drop an AWS service or a Google Vision or Azure Vision thing. So I think you'll actually get an opportunity to do that for real in our Academy session, which Kinshuk and Saraf are presenting at 4:30 today. So if you're interested, come and take a look there.
You mentioned about
Do you have a mic?
Well, we can
just
maybe repeat
for the
it.
recording.
you mentioned the data management. Is there anything available now, or is that future roadmap?
Yeah, so the question, well, I'll just repeat it. The question was, in talking about master data management, is there anything available now, and are we looking toward it? So we're certainly looking for, and the way that I would say it is we're looking for master data management features that we could deliver as part of the platform. We think we're in a good position to do that. There are, I think, a few things that would be available now that, I'm trying to think of good examples.
For example, in the
Yes.
health share context, the
That's
patient index
Yeah.
is a solution for deduplicating
right.
patients that are maybe that kind of walked into different facilities of your hospital network and might be in the system under different names. Patient index identifies those duplicates, and so that's already one master data management capability. So it's one of the components that we're looking at in the context of a more substantial and flexible MDM solution.
Yeah, it's same with HealthShare. There's also a provider directory service as well, so that's in a similar category, that there are, we believe, features in other parts of our solution set that might be applicable more broadly. So yeah, that's definitely an area that we're exploring. Okay. Yeah.
In the FPI solution, while we take in disparate data sets across all of our participant populations, so if you're using AI to kind of resolve some of those patient linkages, do you have a knowledge base so that if I add in another participant and we get the wrong, some modified information that the system has seen before, will the AI be able to say, okay, we've seen this before, it's this patient, and being able to maintain that MPI over time, because that becomes a level of complexity that's very difficult for us to manage in-house, and especially as we start exchanging, and we've been exchanging across state lines for a while, so that information, we get updates consistently.
So the question is about the master patient index, which is a health share module. There are dedicated sessions about that product with people that have more in-depth knowledge of its capabilities. But in general, there's definitely the ability to kind of resync and redo the deduplication efforts. I'm not sure about the real-time aspects of those, but I'm sure that our colleagues from the health share team will be happy to answer that question. And there will be a demo that's very applicable to your question in the show and tell on Wednesday morning in the keynotes. So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for coming.